We're here with Celia Lees. She's a Toronto abstract painter, and we're surrounded by the beautiful work in her show, When We Were Small. And we'll be talking a bit about the work itself, her practice, and how she became an artist. So thank you for coming here today and being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thank you everyone for being here. Super excited to just share a little bit about the series, and yeah, so excited to get into it.
Yeah, so maybe you can start us off by telling us a bit about When We Were Small, and maybe talking a bit about the body of work itself.
Yeah, so this body of work is based on childhood nostalgia and wanting to be present in my practice and bring play back into my practice. So I found that when I was painting, things were getting really tight, really confined, and I wanted to open them up again and feel loose and feel play and feel this energy of being open and enjoying my practice, gravitating towards colors and things naturally, and just allowing my body to move and guide the process on the canvas. So that's why there's a lot of bright colors in this series. That's why there's a lot of circular marks in this series, which I found come up a lot in play with marbles and balls and such like that. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the concept itself.
Yeah, and I guess, what was the inspiration? You know, you talk about play, you talk about sort of finding that excitement within your practice. Was there a particular moment in time or events that really inspired you to sort of gravitate towards that?
Yeah, I think just like thinking back about my childhood and just wanting to have that play and that freedom again, and feeling really nostalgic lately, and flipping through photos with my mom a couple months ago and seeing some of the artwork that I made when I was smaller was really fun for me. And I was like, I wonder what was going through my mind, if anything, when I was creating that stuff. And that kind of is why the gears started to turn and why I started to think about just being more open and just playing and moving my body in a way that it wasn't too overthought or too calculated.
Yeah, and do you have something that you use as like a mental reminder to keep yourself from maybe pushing it too far or pushing it a bit further?
Yeah, sometimes when I get too much in my head and I try to like have an end goal of the way that I want something to look rather than allowing myself to figure it out as I go, I find that often constrains me too much. And I try to let go of that and realize that like everything that I've made up into this point and how I'm feeling that day and my emotions and my lived experiences are going to dictate how the art turns out, not this image that I have of it in my mind. So I just have to kind of let it unfold itself and not get too worried about the details or the ways that I envision it to be, and just kind of let go of that.
Right. And I've been to your studio before. You were kind enough to have me while you were just starting to create this series. You have a number of different sort of, visual cues and collections that you use as inspiration, and I imagine as a bit of a centering or grounding force within the practice. Maybe you could talk to those a little bit.
Yeah, just like the inspirations and like the boards and stuff.
Yeah, I found those really fascinating.
Yeah, so that's something that I learned like when I was studying fashion, is first and foremost, like a lot of people like to see things, the concept first, and then pull things abstractly from the concept and then allow them to unfold down the line. So when I was really excited about creating my first body of work here, I was like, I want it to be cohesive and it to be something that makes sense. So I started to use those boards to kind of ideate what my vision was for the collection. And originally it actually started with circus and play, and then it kind of evolved into something more personal, which was the childhood play. So yeah, just having visual references, putting together colors and textures that were inspiring to me, and then taking away from them like what felt personal to me.
Yeah. Is that the first time you've done that, or is that something that you usually do?
It was the first time I've done it, because normally I just put brush to canvas and kind of just let whatever wants to happen.
Yeah.
But I was so excited about the opportunity to do this collection, and I really wanted to make it something that was meaningful and felt concise and had a strong theme to it. So that's why I tried to approach things differently. It was definitely a learning process.
Yeah.
Now that I know that I can do it that way, I'll probably kind of do a mix of the two instead of doing it so thoughtful and so calculated. Instead, probably kind of fall somewhere more in the middle. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's, I think, appropriate that you mentioned your background. Maybe you could, tell people a bit more about that and how it sort of guided you on the arc that you've found yourself on.
Yeah, so I started out in the fashion world. I worked in fashion for about 2 years before becoming an artist full-time, straight out of school, which is also what I studied in school. I went to Toronto Metropolitan University and did design there. So yeah, working in there, I always felt not creatively fed 100%. I was so happy because it was something that I was interested in. It felt even like a dream to be able to work in a creative industry and have a career, but always had like an itch to do something else. So when COVID happened and I was working in Sweden at the beginning of it, and I lost my job there, so I had to return home, and I was in a small town, it's called Port Stanley, of like 2,000 or 3,000 people, and I was like, obviously I can't get a job in fashion here, what am I gonna do? So I returned to painting again, and it was a point in my life where I had such solitude and not know, of course, like everything that was happening in the world was definitely distracting, but no distractions of my career and no pressure to be doing anything. So I really just leaned into painting, put so much time into it, and basically it just was like, I'm open to commissions, and it just took off from there, and it's been 5 years now since then. So.
Oh, congratulations, that's amazing.
Thanks.
What sort of vestiges of your design background have you sort of taken and incorporated into your artistic practice?
Definitely like color. We learned a lot about like the fundamentals of color in design. We learned about texture. I feel like I understand canvas as a material and it being cotton and how it soaks and bleeds paint, how it repels paint.
Oh, I never thought about that. But
Yeah, because it's a fabric, right? And all
Yeah.
the fabrics that we would use, or all the fabric that we'd use when we would create clothing in school is very similar to raw canvas, actually. So that's why I felt really connected with it instantly. And actually the collection that I made for my 4th year when I was there looked like painting. So I should have at that point probably known that that was what I was supposed to be doing. But yeah, just color and form and texture in general.
Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a fabric. I come from an artistic background, having studied fine art, and I sort of just look at it as canvas. Like that's literally what it is. So it's interesting to hear somebody coming from a different background saying, "Oh, it's fabric." Like, think about how it stains and how it sort of wraps around, and the different effects the colors have in terms of dyes. Maybe you can, explain to people a bit about that, like material process.
Just about like
What you use and
Yeah.
some of the materials, because looking at it you can read the label on the wall, but I think it's always nice for people to hear a bit about what goes into that.
Yeah, for sure. So most of the pieces that you see here are done, of course, on raw canvas, and I'll do a mixture of a very clear, thin gesso that's watered down, and then oftentimes I'll work wet on wet. So what that means is working where the canvas is fully wet and it has a lot of moisture to it, and then I'll paint directly onto the canvas with a watered down paint. So that's how you're able to get some of the forms that kind of like bleed out and take on their own life. That will normally happen. I'll let that layer dry, cross my fingers that I come back the next day, it looks how I hoped that it would, and then go in with like the oil stick and stuff over top to kind of give that push and pull of that depth that I hope to achieve in my work when there's like the layer in the front and then the layer in the back. And then sometimes I'm doing like multiple layers that are of really wet, of different tones. Like this piece here probably had like 10 different layers on it of really thin colors, like lots of different browns and stuff. But the thing when you're working wet on wet is you kind of have to re-wet the entire canvas. So you're kind of risking it every time that you go to reapply a new layer.
Sounds like a lot of, as was it, Bob Ross would put it, happy accidents. Yeah, and through a process that's kind of left up to chance.
Yeah.
You must go through like a number of iterations.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of things get thrown in the garbage, for sure. Probably like half of what I make I throw out. just because you never know what's going to happen, and experimenting and stuff is so important to me, so I don't really honestly get that upset when I have to like throw things away, because I'm like, if it turns into something amazing, now I have something else that I can work with, and if it doesn't, then it's just a lesson that I learned. So
right.
Yeah.
And are you really intentional about like whether you're working on the ground, whether you're working on the wall? Like, is that sort of, because it looks like some of the pieces you're incorporating like gravity into it, or maybe you're allowing stuff to pool on the ground, or sort of flipping it and then continuing to work on it in different ways?
Yeah, it definitely depends like stylistically on the piece. I find normally in my head, without being too constrained, I kind of am like, okay, I know the universe that I want this piece to live in. Is it going to be something that has a bunch of drips and like crazy like splashes all over it? Or is it going to be something more subdued that's like more pooled? Sometimes that changes like a minute into painting after I put one thing on the canvas, but normally I know. So yeah, it's kind of just like a flip-flop between, as I'm adding things, okay, did that drip take away too much from another area of the canvas, so I need to blend that out, then I'll put it on the floor. Then I'm like, is it too wet to pull it up and then have everything drip again, or can I set it on there now and now I can do something like on the wall? So it's nice to honestly have both and be able to kind of use them intertwined, but yeah.
And with creating work that is, you know, as you said, like left up to chance and sort of exploring it as it comes along, do you find, because I know with some artists, when they work in more of a linear fashion, they might come up against creative blocks. Do you find that the process that you use kind of mitigates some of that? Do you find yourself getting creatively blocked? Like, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I find myself, I guess, because I normally just like plow through and try to like keep making when I have creative blocks, that when I do have them, I just making a lot of like kind of shitty work. Stuff that I'm like throwing out, but I know that it's because I'm kind of just like trying to go again and again and again, make something happen, and it's so discouraging making stuff like that, but I know that eventually something's gonna give, so I just kind of keep pushing through it even when it's not kind of working. But then they'll pop up and it'll be like one small area of this huge piece that I'm like, I love that, and then I'll take that small area and then apply what I learned there to the next piece and keep trying to like problem solve and work through kind of what's going on.
Right, right. And do you, having been to your studio, like I said, you have the ability to have, multiple pieces out at the same time. Do you sort of take comfort in the fact that you can work on different paintings at the same time? Do you find that you can riff on them or on each other?
Yeah, I find sometimes when I'm trying to especially be more like pulled back and a little bit more like minimal, like these smaller ones on the wall over there, it's nice when you have a few different things going on, because you're not so fixated on one piece that you're gonna like overwork it.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of allowing like yourself to put one thing on the canvas, walk away, let it breathe for a bit, see how it dries in like an hour, kind of figure out like if it's working or not, and then kind of bounce around between the canvases instead of just putting everything into one piece. But then on the flip side, when you do put everything into one piece, like moments, like special moments happen when you're doing that too, because you only get like one chance to figure everything out, and sometimes you just kind of need to do everything in one short go to make the piece successful in its own right. So it's kind of depends on the day and the process.
Yeah, and what do you feel, being surrounded by the work now, what do you feel the most proud of, or what do you feel like is the most successful about the show?
I think that it's something that's a little bit different for me. I think that I have done in the past of stuff that is very heavy on mark making, and it almost takes over the whole canvas. This, doing a lot of the circular form, is something new, but something that was really exciting to me. I tend to like gravitate away from geometric shapes, so doing circles was a challenge that I felt like I was able to overcome and produce during this series. So I'm just proud to see it all here, seeing the colors like work together, and seeing it up in a clean, beautiful gallery instead of my studio where everything's a mess is always like super rewarding to see that come to life too.
I don't think your studio is that much of a mess. It's pretty organized. Like for art, I've been to a lot of artist studios, and some of them are, it's literally like paint everywhere on the floor, on the walls.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's I think it's, you have like the design aesthetic that like carries through into your space.
Thank you.
And it's very welcoming. You
Good.
got a space sort of set up where you can maybe step away from the work and read. I notice you have art books. Do influences sort of like find their way into your practice?
Yeah, like I love flipping through stuff and seeing like definitely different techniques and stuff that artists have used, and even just like zooming in on a little piece of a painting and being like, that purple and that green that artist paired together is so beautiful. And then I'm like, could try to experiment with that, or yeah. So it's nice to me to have kind of that stuff around, to just like have a coffee and flip through. I'm not like going through really and like making notes and stuff like super calculated, but just like taking it in and having it around me is nice.
And who are some of your biggest influences, artistically speaking?
Yeah, definitely Cy Twombly is a huge one for me. He works a lot large scale, which I love. It's really ornate, but it also has this like chaos to it, and these scribbles of like words that feel very mysterious, which is really compelling to me. And his selection of colors is amazing, like so beautiful and delicate, but also he'll use like really intense, powerful reds. So I think him having like the balance of all those things is something that I'm always trying to like strive towards myself. And then I love Franz Klein too a lot. Big black like brush strokes that are crazy and feel so full of energy and life. And such strong compositions like come out of seeing brush strokes like that. Because with black and white, it's so intense. You don't have the color to like lean on to balance things out. You kind of just have to like make the composition out of that alone. So I think that that's super commendable. And then yeah, just also like other artists in different genres, like Tyler, the Creator, like a musician, is huge inspiration to me, like just as a creative person, always doing different things with like clothing and art and music. So super interesting. Siren. And also Childish Gambino too, who's a rapper and a musician. I just love when someone's like an all-encompassed like creative person. And that's something that, of course, coming from fashion, going into art and being interested in things like sculpture and other vessels of art, like I want to always be somebody that has different disciplinaries of interest. So when people have that, it's really, really compelling to me.
Have you played around with sculpture at all?
I have here and there. Yeah, I haven't like showed anything yet because it's definitely like not to the caliber that I would like to present it at. But yeah, of course, working in a 3D form in fashion, it feels weird to have everything flat all the time.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, so I've done things where like I've stretched the canvas over like bulges of like polyfill and stuff like that, so it'd be like a sculpture, but it would still like hang on the wall, or like layered and glued pieces of like canvas and making them into sculpture. So maybe down the line we'll see something, but right now it's just like enjoying the fun of like playing with the 3D form for once.
Yeah, I could see that like sort of wall-mounted sculpture, those sort of bulging forms you're talking about, because the work itself feels sort of 3D. You feel like because space and depth of field is really important to you in your work. So I could imagine, some of those forms kind of coming out from the wall. And also this, like, because you look at it as fabric, how, you can stain, or how you can think about, using the form itself and moving the viewer around it.
Yeah, it'd be so cool to like see that hung on the wall and then be able to walk around like the sides of it and see different angles and stuff, instead of everything being kind of like 2D, I guess. So
yeah.
Maybe soon, we'll see.
Something to build on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I will sort of just kind of bring it to a close and ask some quick thought-provoking questions, hopefully.
Okay.
I guess the first one would be, what's the best piece of criticism you've ever received?
maybe it's not like criticism, but more like advice.
Great.
I've had a lot of people in my life just be like, just do it, just figure it out, just like kind of what I was saying, just plow through. I feel like whenever I would overthink things and procrastinate things and just like ruminate and stuff, it was never a good mindset for me to have. So if I like see an opportunity of something that I feel is good for me, I always take it. I just make it happen. If something's complex, I figure it out. So I just always try to be somebody that's resourceful and independent and can just keep moving forward. So yeah, just trying to just do it and kind of carry on.
Okay, I think that's a great mantra to live by. What's the favorite tool you have in your artistic arsenal?
Probably my oil sticks, I would say.
Yeah.
When I started using those, I felt like my practice and my paintings really started to speak to me, and it really took my work to a different level. It was also something that, coming from fashion, coming from doing a lot of illustrations, I felt that working with a massive paintbrush and stuff didn't feel as innate to me as it did like kind of drawing and having the tooth of the oil stick or the tooth of a graphite pencil does on the surface of a work. So when I was able to combine the two and make beautiful forms and colors with paint and then go back in and then create something that's also unique and layer it over top, I really felt like that was when my art started to really speak to me and become something that I was proud of.
Yeah. Do you do any illustration?
Here and there also.
Yeah?
Yeah, every once in a while. Because we would draw lots of like forms and stuff in school, and I really enjoyed it. But also like when I was doing stuff like that, I would be doing them kind of abstract anyway, so it was never like anatomically accurate illustrations. It was always my own thing.
Stylistic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it has
exactly.
some sort of purpose. Yeah. What role do you see as art playing in society today?
A means of connection, a means of conversation.
Oh.
Something that two people can look at, discuss, project their own feelings onto, take their own feelings away from.
Yeah.
Something, that brings us together and connects. It's also for humans that are painting and are artists, a way to express yourself, a way to therapize yourself. So just an amazing tool for connection, I think, really.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I want to ask is if there was a specific piece, you spoke about some of your influences, but if there was a specific piece of art you could have for yourself, what would it be?
Yeah, that's such a hard question because there's like so many.
Right, I guess like right now.
Yeah. There's this one piece by Van Gogh actually that's called Bedroom in Arles that I am obsessed with and have been for the past few years, because when I was living in Stockholm by myself and I was in this like really crappy apartment, it was this like single bed, it was this tiny little room, it had nothing in it. It was not adorned in these like personal belongings. It was just very like bare bones and very minimal. We were traveling to Paris for a work trip, and I was fortunate enough to go to one of the museums there, and one of the Bedroom in Arles was hanging in the museum. And it literally looked exactly like the bedroom that I was living in that moment. And I was like, I've never felt like so connected or felt like a piece was so relatable to me, which was so weird coming from it being Van Gogh. But just also like he painted that piece because he was like trying to represent the bedroom as like refuge, and that was the only thing that I had that was like mine at the time, was this tiny little bedroom, and we were both in these places like pursuing these artistic kind of pursuits and for our career. So yeah, it was just, I just always felt such a connection with that piece, and now I always see it like pop up in these like weird places, and there's like 3 of them actually, so you see them more frequently.
Oh, I didn't know there were 3.
Yeah, there's different versions of them that he painted. I guess the first one got ruined or something, then he painted a couple of them as gifts for his family.
Oh.
So yeah, there's different versions of it, but whenever I see it, I just feel like it's like, it's gonna be okay. Like there's other people that are in the same kind of position as you, and although that it's lonely, like you're doing it for a good reason and to pursue something for yourself. So yeah, it's a good piece.
Yeah, it's interesting how art mirrors life at times.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Celia's show will be on display until October 6th. And if any of you arrived a little later, I invite you to stick around, take a look through the rest of the collection. And thank you very much, Celia.
Thank you.